thing with eyeglasses, like they would wear like just a single spyglass. You didn't see them pinch, ladies wouldn't pinch them into their eyes like that, but sometimes to just do a little bit of close reading or just to, thread a needle, you might see that hanging off of somebody's waistband. One last thing with Emily that I wanted to show you was it was a French tradition. I know we're mostly talking about English fashions, but a French tradition at the very beginning of the 19th century was to, you can put that out there. Annie, all right? Good change. She's very talented. You should see her many talents. She's not used to dressing and dressing perfectly. Keep talking. Do you need help? No. Okay, come on over here. Keep talking. Normally, a lady would take her dress off to do that, but one more tradition that we saw was the white dress and the red accessories. And at the beginning of the century, the French Revolution was still very close to people's hearts, and so you would see ladies dressed in, you would see ladies dressed in these a la victime outfits. And they would actually, tie this right here. That wasn't always where it was tied. But they would take a bright red accessory, like a bright red jacket, turn around, or a piece of bright red ribbon and tie it as a sash, and then you often saw even something more complex than this, like an actual, like a ribbon harness. And it was a way that your underclothes, your chemise, was tied back in order for your head to be chopped off, because you would have given your nice clothes away during the French Revolution, given away your good clothes to a deserving person, maybe somebody who had given you comfort, maybe somebody who had hidden you for a while, maybe somebody, somebody that you wanted to get in good with while you were in jail. So the lady would be down to just her chemise, and then these bright red accessories it was more in sympathy for those victims of the French Revolution, that a la victime outfit. And it was also seen with short cropped hair and sometimes a red bandana or a red headband. And then along with that, since she is our gentlewoman, we have a coral necklace, and so this type of look was very, very common. I see you have new dresses out. Yes. We're still talking about accessories. Yes, we're still talking about accessories. We got all sorts of accessories going. To add to her talk about reticules, this is a crocheted one, but it looks knitted, and they can be made from yarn, crochet thread, and then this one is just a piece of satin with some lace over it, and these type can be hand sewn. This one, embroidery was very popular at the time. They embroidered everything, and I didn't have time to embroider anything, so I searched for an old table runner that was very elaborately embroidered and just turned it into a reticule. It just has blanket binding on the top and a little tassel on the bottom. And so the possibilities are endless there. And along with what Yvette talked about, we have, during Jane Austen's time, in her class or classes below her, they could only afford to have a few outfits. So they had to mix and match a lot, use the same couple of outfits and add to them with the different colored spencers, the different colored shawls. And shawls were knitted, or one of the very popular shawls of the time were cashmere shawls imported from India. And they actually are still around today. They're pashmina shawls. And paisley was a very popular pattern at the time. And
actually is still today. And so this one, they were worn long, and this one is 2 cashmere or pashmina shawls sewn together, so you can get the length. And that's easy to do by just cutting off one end of each shawl and connecting them together in the center to get one long shawl. And they did a lot of wrapping around, or just hanging like this, or if they were in a coach or a carriage and it was cold, they'd wrap it around themselves several times, and that's why they wanted the length. These little accessories are fichus and often made of lace. They were triangular a lot of times, like the one Yvette showed. Sometimes they were rectangular because some of the elderly ladies would like to just wear them hanging in front and tie them or run them through a ring or pin them. And so these are a little long, so we're not going to try to tuck them in, but that was one of the things they did with them to be modest. And so many times they would just bring them together in the front like this and pin them or run a ring through them. Back to you to finish.
A few more accessories. Come on up, Avery. These are real popular right now, and they're similar to what existed in Jane Austen's time. And they're sunscreen gloves. You can get these on Wish or other places that sell goods from Asia, but the idea, in Asia right now is that if you're driving, you don't want to suntan your arms and not have the rest of you suntan. That's very popular right now. I don't know why it hasn't hit the United States yet. I bought them because I wanted to keep the sun off my arms while I was driving. But you can see that they're an easy and relatively inexpensive, I know that these cost me less than $5, way to imitate those fingerless gloves that were very common for a century before Austen and almost a century after. They're very useful. They keep your hands warm but your fingers free for needlework, and you can find them. These have some more in them, but they've got a little lace pattern on them, and if you want to accessorize without adding a lot of money or a lot of space, it's a really good idea. One more shawl. I was going to show off this one. Here's another example of if you can find it, make it work. I had this nasty purple yarn. I think it's Red Heart. Not that I'm against Red Heart, but crochet really didn't exist in Austen's time. But it kind of looked like one of the fashion plates I had seen. And so I just kind of, worked it up into this little shawl here. And the idea of having those little bobbles at the end or a little bit of fringe, I thought just gave this costume a totally different look. So there's a different look for that. And I was going to move on to ball gowns next. So formal wear. Okay. Jewelry in Austen's time, women didn't really wear jewelry during the day. If they did, it was very understated. And I happened to find something that looked like, I'm sure these are turquoise beads, and I just put them on a flexible string. I think it's actually $3 store bracelets together. But you can see that turquoise was common, coral was common. She was wearing coral before. Pearls were not unheard of. Lots of semi-precious stones. You'd have to be, at least 10,000 a year in order to be able to carry off diamonds. Cameos were very popular, like the one that Emily had holding down her sash. But the idea that you would wear your jewelry all the time, like many of us do, wearing your gold jewelry, it just wouldn't happen. Even during the day, this might be a little bit much. The next thing I'd like to show you is what...
When would they wear their jewelry if they didn't wear it?
You would wear it to balls, or you would wear it for dinners. And so the next thing I was going to show you is an outfit that you might wear to a fine dinner, like if you were at a house party or if you had been, if you were inviting Mr. Darcy to dine at your house. And so this is an overdress. It was actually made to match that other dress, but you'll suit. This will work. Another example of you don't have to have any money to make a really impressive costume. This one is made out of drapery fabric that was on clearance. A lot of times when they're selling drapery fabric, they just don't, there's yardage at the end that's enough for an outfit, but not enough for your curtains. Sorry, got some interesting frog buttons here going on. And I've worn off all my fingernails with sewing. And so, go ahead and put your arm through there. Oops, other side. There you go. So this is made out of drapery fabric. Once again, not super authentic, but very effective nevertheless. Back out here. And this comes forward in the front. I didn't spend any money on buttons. I had these glass beads from a broken necklace. And the trim is made, I just took straight strips of fabric. We'll just do one. I took straight strips of fabric on the skirt trim, pinked them with my pinking shears, ran them through the sewing machine with my ruffler foot on a pretty big interval. And then as I was sewing it down, I just caught those broken necklace pieces in. If you look here at the side, if you look here at the side, this Van Dyke edging is what they called it, the kind of a sawtooth effect. And sometimes I didn't have the time or patience to do a whole hem like this, but you would see a couple rows of that around that hem, or along the whole edge of a long pelisse-type coat. I just had no patience for this much because it takes a lot of cutting and trimming. And I didn't really like how uneven it looked. So if your sewing skills are in progress, sometimes you can cover up a multitude of sins with some beading. Is that right, Emily? Emily works in alterations, just speaking from experience here. So I just added some beads in there because I didn't like how uneven it looked. Here in the front, I made some frogs out of bias binding. I just cut some pieces out on bias and made some little self buttons out of the frog material. And that would be an appropriate outfit for dinner in a fancy place, Mr. Darcy's house. And then obviously to dress up for a ball, but you'd have to pin up the train on this one. But you would need gloves. Never dance without gloves. We're going to go ahead and try these. We'll try this hand on. I guess I have two left hands today. No, I don't. I have a right and a left. And you can find these, from the days that we wore gloves. My mom had boxes of these left over from old dances. Is it going to work? Close enough. But the idea of touching somebody else's sweaty hands while you're dancing is pretty icky. And so it's nice to have nice fresh gloves on. I'm going to let you go ahead and take a seat.
No, turn around.
Oh, we want to see the back. That's pretty impressive. And I've seen combinations of pleats and gathers in skirts. There was more breadth in skirts than I'd expected. Doing my first research, I assumed that everything was just a straight, almost an A line. And as I looked at more and more historic patterns, like from the book Patterns of Fashion, I noticed that there was quite a bit more. This one is not sitting well, but you can see that sometimes that was taken in pleats, sometimes it was gauged, where they took little tiny cartridge pleats, sometimes it was just straight gathered. And because this was originally from my mom, she's not a big person into bulk in her clothing. That's why I chose to do pleats on that. And it's just drapery fabric, so it was cheap. I think her whole outfit that she's wearing is less than $10 right there. Okay, are you ready for the ball? Looking down? Go ahead.
This is another example of a dress or pelisse. They could be sleeveless, long sleeve, short sleeve. Floor length, like this one.
There's a lot of
Maybe do a couple of things. And then pleats in the back. And while we're at it, I'd like to explain that this dress is and a way to turn a modern dress into a Regency gown. It has an empire waistline, and this was the length of it. So what we did was just make an underskirt that you can just pull on underneath it to get the length that you need. Added a little lace around the sleeves and the collar. The buttons were already cloth covered, so they were already period. And that's an inexpensive way of turning a modern dress with very little sewing into a Regency dress. Because you could even hand sew that skirt if you didn't have a sewing machine. On Kelsey's dress, this is another type of overskirt that can be added to a dress, a simpler dress, to make a ball gown. This is just a sheer fabric that was quite popular at the time. And it transforms the dress.